This week, I'm recording the intro outside because I work with a bunch of goddamn idiots.
This book is a little bit of Christian missionary propaganda.
And he perhaps is based upon a well-known literary figure, or perhaps even a historical figure.
Now, Didymus is simply the Greek word for twin. It's also used as the Greek word for testicles, for obvious reasons. There are usually two of them.
She kissed him. Your fruit shall be without root, and your shoots shall be dried up like a branch scorched by a strong wind.
How many of you find this child Jesus an adorable, cute little baby? Nobody? Good.
I sprinkled my body with the bathwater that his mother had used to wash him off, and in that instant I was healed.
Greetings, fellow worker slaves, podcasting at 128 kilobits on my way back to the Fortress of Squalitude. This is the Atheist in the Trailer Park Podcast. I'm your host, Tucker. I have no idea what the cats are up to because, as you can hear, I'm outside walking home from work. Yes, it's a podcast hosted by a guy and normally his cats. This is a Gnostic text episode, and Hertzey and I will be reading more from the Acts of Paul, possibly called the Acts of Paul and Thecla. I've never been able to determine that. So, let's start with what has me all pissy and why I'm recording this now instead of at home, like I should be. It was supposed to be a nice, easy night tonight. But here's what happened. William decided, no, we shouldn't rack the meat the way we were supposed to. We should do it differently, because if we did it differently, it would cut the number of racks we had to do. And instead of us doing 37 racks in 4 hours, we did 37 racks in 9.5 hours. Great job there. And of course, I can't argue with him because he's a stubborn old coot who doesn't listen to anybody, and he bitched and fussed the management, so we had to do it his way, and it took longer and didn't save us any, didn't cut down on the number of racks. Fucking wonderful, right? Now, the reason I didn't record this earlier in the week is because, Thursday I had this great idea. And it really was actually a great idea. I needed to replace the light in the kitchen for quite some time now. But it's a two-person job. I got a second person living in the house. Let's do that. And I knew, swapping the light out would take a while. Because, shit like that always does. So, and I had everything needed, basically, to do the light. So I thought, sort of. Anyways, so Tasha and I, on Thursday, we get up, and I get her up, and then we start on the light. first thing. I figure, take care of that light. It takes a couple hours, and then, do whatever around the house. Else that needs to be done, because, there is a definite reason why I refer to the place as the Fortress of Solitude. Well, so, get the light out. Not nearly as difficult as I thought it would be. I actually thought it would be a real problem, because it's a recessed light. And I thought we'd have a whole bunch of screws and shit to take out. No, 4 screws, and that bitch was on the floor. Okay. So, pull the new light out of the box that I've had for a couple of years now. And realize, it's not designed to be mounted that way. So, it's not good because it's not a recessed light, which I knew it wasn't, but I figured it fit nicely over the hole. Nope. It doesn't. It's not a big deal. There's little gaps around the sides, but I have to, cover part of the hole so I can bolt this plate that you affix the back of the light to. No big deal. Got the wood. Got everything you need. Get that done. Get the plate on there. Go to put the light up. Light does not fit for some reason. So we spend a couple hours trying to get it. We've hooked the wires up and everything. Then I figure out what the problem is. So we got to make a run to the store, get a couple of things minor. So get the couple of fiddly bits we need, and this time I'm going to be a smart guy. I'm going to test fit the light before we worry about hooking the wires up. That way I know if I've got it right or if we've got to do something else. So I do the test fit. Goes beautifully. Absolutely beautifully. I mean, 3 seconds it's up there. Great. Now let's take the light down and hook the wires up. It won't come loose. So we spend a couple hours trying to get the light down again so we can hook the wires up, put it back. Nope. So by this time it's dark and we can't really see what we're doing, so we got to give up. And we can't do anything in the kitchen because I had to flip the circuit breaker off and don't want to flip it back on with there being bare wires up there. Friday morning, get up, and it's like, fuck this. Done a whole bunch of shit and could not get anything. Get it loose. I'm cutting a hole in the ceiling. So, go to the hardware store, get a couple of things I need to cut a hole in the ceiling. Cut the hole. Wire the light up. Turn the circuit breaker on. Turn the switch. And it worked beautifully. Then we had to take care of, cleaning up the fucking mess in the kitchen because, when you cut a hole in the ceiling, there's all kinds of dust and insulation, and then I had to patch the hole. And all that basically ate up. Friday. Yesterday, because earlier in the week, Tasha was sitting out on the front porch, and, you know, those food boxes that had to have a letter from Trump in them and given to food banks. Well, and, you know, a suspicious number of those food banks actually turned out to be churches, and they were, you know, found not to be distributing them to the actual needy. Now, we ended up with one of those because the local church just took the boxes and went through the trailer park, and if they found somebody home, they said, "Would you like a box?" And of course, Tasha says, "Yes, I'll take a box." I mean, it's free food. You know, there was a 5-pound sack of potatoes in it, gallon of 1% milk. What else was there? Carrots, onions, a whole bunch of hot dogs. I mean, and some cheese. You know, not really nutritionally great other than the carrots and potatoes, but it was free. So Saturday we had to, you know, I needed to cook some of the stuff because I don't have a lot of space for some of it, and since, hey, I'm off on Saturday, that's a good time to do a bunch of cooking for the week. So did that, cleaned the refrigerator out, and the refrigerator is anemic. So I had a nice panic moment because it's trying to get, when we got all the food back in there, trying to get it to cool down. But anyways, that is why I'm doing this now, because I had planned on being home earlier tonight so I could sit and cut this intro and then do the editing. Well, I don't have that kind of time right now, so I am cutting the intro now, and then when I get in the house, I will do the editing, and I'm almost to the house, so I'm going to wrap this up here and get to Hertzey, Hertz, and I reading more from the Acts of Paul. And next week will be a news episode, and I'm going to try to have Hertzey and Maddie back. We'll see how it goes.
Now, it is not surprising that Luke has not narrated this fight with the beasts along with the other acts.
Was Luke jealous?
I don't know. For it is not permitted to entertain doubt because, or seeing that John alone of the evangelists has told of the raising of Lazarus. Okay, that makes no sense.
Well, I could see where this might make sense because if John alone is the one who talks about the raising of Lazarus, because the gospel books kind of build off of each other, right?
Right.
So what he might be I think what he's trying to do is rewrite some of the people bringing up, yeah, but Luke doesn't say this, but John does.
Yeah. Okay, but whatever.
Yeah.
For we know that not everyone writes, believes, or knows everything, but according as the Lord has imparted to each. So why would he not want to make his book unequivocally clear?
Because if God exists, he's a massive douche.
I can't argue with that.
My logic is
impeccable.
100% on that.
As the Spirit divides to each, so does he perceive and believe and write spiritually the things of the Spirit.
Those were words.
Yeah. Those were certainly all words.
I even know what each of those words means, but when you put them together like that, I got nothing.
Yeah.
All right. Hippolytus is as a voucher for the early date of the story, and nice Horus for its source. It will be recognized, moreover, at once as being quite in the manner of our author. What? Did I read that right?
Those were certainly all words.
Yes. Oh man, there's a Facebook group I joined that says, "What did I?" It's like something about like, "What did I just read and why do I smell burnt toast?"
There's one I'm in that's sound. I got to find it because it's.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact wording of the one I'm in, but it's somewhere along those lines. It's mostly just a tag group because you're just looking, going,
yeah.
What?
Yeah, this one I'm in is sounds like the incoherent rambling of lead-poisoned baby boomers, but okay.
Oh, that's good. The anger of the Ephesians, it cannot be doubted, was roused by Paul's preaching of continence.
Continence, yeah, don't shit your pants.
To which Ebula and Armatilla became converts. The episode is really little more than a repetition of Theleika with Paul for the principal figure. So, is it basically saying that the story doesn't matter because it's a repetition of something else and replaces Paul?
Well, see, here's the thing.
It's almost self-aware for a moment.
There's a huge problem with sorting out some of these old texts on the interwebs, and I just don't have the money to buy, definitive books on the subject. But there is a book called The Acts of Paul and Thecla, and that may be this work, or it may be another work that has significant overlap with this work, and I cannot figure out the difference. And there's like references I can find to certain lost gospels where the indications are that, yeah, we have copies of the text, but I can't find anything on those texts, let alone a copy of the text, even though, there's enough shit to indicate that, yes, they do exist somewhere and we know about them.
I'm betting that this particular piece was written by a fan of Thecla who is just being really snotty.
Could be. Could very well be. But
I have seen some fans.
Yeah, well, Thecla was, and this is earlier in this book, Thecla was a woman who was betrothed to somebody else, and she meets Paul, who, is like this hideous-looking dude, but she decides that's the dick she wants, and she goes off with Paul.
I was going to say, in that case, I'm actually going to support the fan of Thecla, because now this sounds like they're trying to, whatever the sexist version of whitewashing would be called, Paul in for Thecla. Yeah,
well, apparently that is possible, and it's also possible that Paul and Thecla were, equal partners going across to spread the gospel. I am vaguely reminded of the guy and his wife who founded the Heaven's Gate cult.
Oh, Bo and
Peep. Bo and Peep. And I still love what Lewis Black said about that. If you say you're Bo and your wife is Peep, I'm out of there. Unless there's sheep. And she's dressed appropriately. And then I might be around I might stay for quite some time.
Though, going back to a discussion we had earlier, though, that's another one where there's question about whether or not he was gay or bi, or I think he was gay and and because he grew up incredibly Christian, could not handle it.
Yeah, that is certainly a possibility. I will not argue that point. I mean, I I used to know a guy who he was friends with my roommate and a mutual friend of ours. And he called my roommate up one day, and he was, telling my roommate that he was really upset, and so, tears and all this. And my roommate eventually got out of the guy because he was kind of worried the guy was suicidal. That the guy was upset because the guy was worried he might be gay. And he wound up getting hitched to our mutual friend, and they steadfastly denied that they were gay. They claimed they were bisexual, but they never seemed to have sex with women. So, I mean, it's entirely possible that they were, but they didn't, like I said, didn't have sex with women, and they were in an open relationship. So it's not like, well, we're committed to one another, so we will not have sex with women. It was like, we'll take it where we can get it. And
it's interesting to hear you and I, because we're on different areas on multiple ways, and it's like, I wonder how much of this is more rural versus more urban, or generational, or
some of it is definitely generational, and it's certainly, and in this particular case, is not rural versus urban, because both those guys, for like the mutual friend, he was from Nashville, so good sized city, and the guy who became his husband, I don't exactly remember where he was from, but he was from a northern state, maybe Indiana. I don't know. I sort of lost track of them after the one dude got busted going through customs in Canada with child porn.
Oh, yeah, that's a no. There are hard no's.
Yeah,
I'm willing to make zoophilia jokes, but even zoophilia I've got issues with. But yeah, that's like the no.
Yeah, I mean, there is, I mean, it's one thing if you didn't know she was 17 or he or whatever, but it's another thing if you're talking about somebody who, is clearly underage.
Yeah.
And apparently he was caught with some obviously underage stuff. So it wasn't like he was caught with, photos of a 17-year-old guy that you wouldn't necessarily know unless you had tracked down the details on him. It was, oh no, that was quite clearly. And I guess I guess his sentence should be up soon. He was, he got 20 years in Canada's prison. So.
Wow.
And that was early 2000s, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, now we get to go to the scenes of farewell.
Yeah.
Should we give it the proper dramatic prose?
Well, I might throw some reverb on it in editing.
Cool.
That's there. Okay, somebody had to get out of my way. Paul speaking Thanksgiving. The grace
I didn't know we had Thanksgiving back then.
Yeah. I thought we had to wait to slaughter people before we... The grace of the Lord will walk with me until I have fulfilled all the dispensations which shall come upon me with patience. Old guy, big prostate, takes a while for him to get off. But they were sorrowful and fasted. And Cleobius was in the Spirit and said unto them, Brethren, the Lord will suffer Paul to fulfill every dispensation, and thereafter will suffer him to go up to Jerusalem. But thereafter shall be, ellipses, in much instruction and knowledge and sowing of the word, so that men shall envy him, and so shall he depart out of this world. But when Paul and the brethren heard this, they lifted up their voices, saying,
Next page, first extant line.
It's so beautiful. That is so beautiful.
And I mean, I know that's like a more direction of like, okay, so honestly, this thing kind of got beat up. But still.
Yeah.
So next page, first extant line, beheld. Second shall say. Third, but the Spirit may come. Oh, here we go. But the Spirit came upon Mert, so that she said unto them, Brethren, ellipses, and look upon this sign, that ye, ellipses, for Paul, the servant of the Lord, shall save many in Rome, so that of them shall be no number, and he will manifest himself more than all of the faithful. Therefore shall, ellipses, of the Lord Jesus Christ come.
For I come quickly.
A great grace is, ellipses, at Rome, and this is the manner wherein the Spirit spake unto Mert, and everyone took the bread, and they were in joy, according to the custom of the fast, through, ellipses, and the Psalms of David, and, ellipses, he rejoiced. I really would love to know what's in between some of those things. But it's also look, and I'm like, this isn't going to make much more sense if I put that in.
That's true. On the next page, the only significant words are, to Rome, the brethren, grieved, took the bread, praised the Lord, were very sorrowful. The next...
I was going to say, there's a lot of bread.
Yeah. You know, we're very sorrowful. Well, that's what she said. The next page has ends of lines. The Lord, risen, Jesus. Paul said to him, the last is he or they greeted. 2 more pages have nothing of moment. The next is concerned with the martyrdom. I would really like to know what the heck was on those pages, but they don't tell us.
Paul just really went off on the carbs.
Yeah, but I mean, considering the crap that they've already given us, how dull and pointless could this shit have been?
Maybe there's a bread recipe. If there was a bread recipe, I would consider that, at least interesting.
Well, I would too.
I really feel like it's not a bread recipe.
No, but I mean...
Despite the fact that it keeps talking about rising.
But I mean, we've got whole sections of the Bible that are nothing more than genealogical histories of people who never existed. So, how, if you're duller than that, man, that is some stuff.
Well, what I love is it's genealogical history of people who never existed for... Oh, shoot, I had this and then it went away. Well,
yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard for in the case of Jesus, for Joseph's genealogy to matter since there's no connection.
Well, exactly. That's where I was going. It's like, and so many of them don't connect anyways.
Yeah.
So it's like, so why is this here if it can't actually do anything? More fan fiction had to be created for this.
Yeah. And I think the Holy Blood, Holy Grail guys were right about this, even though they were wrong about the other stuff. They're like, yeah, this is done just to, kind of legitimize him, even though nobody really knew any of this shit.
Well, then and then another part is, so the last fragment seems to be talking about Paul ascending, which I don't remember. I don't think he did. I think, at least in the Catholic tradition, Mary was supposed to be, the last person who ascended.
Well, the thing is there is nothing associated with Paul after a certain point in history, and while there are legends that, he was martyred, nobody knows.
And the Romans kept a lot of records, so you'd think we'd be able to find that somewhere.
Yeah, that's one of my big beefs with all the people who think, oh no, there actually was a Jesus. It's like, really? Romans were anal about keeping records, and they got nothing on this guy. And we've got all the records from that time period in that area you'd expect to mention him, and they don't mention a thing about him. So something's screwed up here.
Now, I could see Paul, dying alone on the side of a path and, nobody noticing him missing and everyone just being like, well, what happened? He just disappeared.
Yeah, I can see that.
Granted, I also would be surprised that if he was traveling alone, because he seems to be the type to want an entourage.
And that's sort of the whole point of this book, is him and his girlfriend Thecla traveling around and doing stuff together.
And of course, this gorgeous woman goes after this guy. Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, I know.
Not to say that looks are everything, but...
Yeah, but I mean, come on. If I hooked up with Scarlett Johansson tomorrow, everybody would be like, something's up with that.
I'd be like me getting Chris Hemsworth. Whew. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you swallow and nobody else in Hollywood does because they're worried about the calorie count.
I'm happy with my cats. It's all good. Yeah. All right, the martyrdom, because apparently the farewell above was not the actual farewell.
That's it for this episode of The Atheist in the Trailer Park Podcast. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, as well as just about anywhere else podcasts can be found. Many of the episodes are also on YouTube. Follow the show on Twitter. @TParkAtheist is the show's Twitter handle. It's on Facebook at facebook.com/trailerparkatheist.com. If you happen to like the podcast, please rate it on iTunes. If you'd like to support the podcast, there's a donate button on the show notes page. You can support it via Patreon at patreon.com/TNTucker. Thanks for listening.
Say goodnight, Fuznuts.
All I know is this violates every canon of respectable broadcasting.
Damned cat.